Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for this Facebook Live. And as I mentioned earlier, I've got a very special guest with me, and that's Michelle from Meditation Sunshine Coast. So thanks for coming along, Michelle.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the conversation. And I think we've got a lot to cover and a lot of information that I think people will be very interested to hear about with today's climate. So just before we get into that discussion, why don't we just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you've got to this point to where you are today.
Yeah, so like most people who've ended up as meditation teachers or learning meditation, I had a point of overwhelm in my life. I was running a kids' party business, looking after 2 kids, paying the mortgage, all that sort of thing, and just became completely overwhelmed to the point where I just almost couldn't function anymore. And that's what brought me to meditation. I can't actually remember the point where I sat down and started to do it. I just know that I struggled. I struggled even counting to 10 with my breath. And I then took it further and began studying meditation. I did training in Melbourne with the Gawler Institute, and also did a advanced certificate through the Australian College of Holistic Studies.
Yep.
And I then turned to my mother at one point and said, somebody should be teaching this to kids. And she was one that said to me, well, why don't you? Which freaked me out at first, because I come from a family of teachers, but I'm not one myself. I've never taught anything before. So then I just did some extra studies with people who specifically taught children, and some workshops, all that sort of thing, and developed my own program to teach 8 to 12-year-olds to start off with.
Yep.
And then I began teaching their mothers, so then I did start doing a program for adults, and then from there progressed with the age of my own children, who are now 12 and 14, into teaching a condensed version to teens, because I could see there was a real need for it in that age group.
Yep. Yeah, it's a I think it's a very different landscape, even pre-COVID, but a very different landscape for teenagers than it was when we were teenagers. I know, showing my age, I guess, but back in the 90s, no, 80s, wow, okay. So back in the 80s, it was a very different thing. Like, you had to find your own entertainment, really, whereas I guess, and we'll cover this a little bit more in detail when we sort of talk about the challenges that the teens currently face, but I sort of struggle with the concept, but I guess, the kids today, they don't know any different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, I guess, before we get into the challenges, but how do you think, is it something in our DNA, or is it just that adaptability, the human adaptability that puts kids in that position where they just, because they don't know any different, they can cope with that? Whereas I think if I was put in that situation, with all the pressures of being a teenager, I think it'd be very different for me. So can you talk to us a bit about that? Or
Yeah, I think the thing is they're not coping. We look at them and think that, okay, their lives are just busier than ours was, and they are. Statistically, the amount of information that they're learning and the amount of external stimulation that they're bombarded with is just astronomical compared to when you and I were at school and learning. And of course we didn't have social media, we just had TVs, we didn't have computers, we didn't have the internet and all that sort of thing. So I think that to say that they've adapted because they don't know any better, I think it's more that they just don't realise that they're under overwhelm.
right.
They don't realise their stress. They don't know how to deal with stress because they don't realise what stress is.
Yep.
So they're just going about their day 24/7, moving from school to sport to homework to phones and all that sort of thing, without realising the amount of physical and mental pressure that they're putting on their bodies.
Yep.
Until they get into a state of overwhelm, and then they don't know what that is. They don't know what they're feeling. They don't know how to cope with it.
Okay.
And that's where teaching them to be more mindful and teaching them skills like meditation can help them go back into a state of relaxation in between all these things.
Okay. Yep. All right. So what we might just jump into having a look at that. If we look here, let's have a look at our first challenge that we're sort of talking about. So constantly connected to technology or friends 24/7. And Yeah, like this, my daughter will probably have a crack at me for doing this anyway. But we try and have a policy that it's, if we're watching the TV, then there's no phones, but well, there's no computers. But inevitably, she'll catch me out because it's difficult to do. You can particularly when the ads come on, and there's a whole sort of series around that I'd sort of like to cover on TV, and that's usually the time the phone comes out. So talk to me a bit more about that. Like, it's what sort of damage is that doing? Like, talk to me a bit about. I know that it's, there's the technology aspect of it. So, there's a potential for damage from the radiation and things like that people talk about. But more on that psychological level.
Yep. So it's mental overload. Yep. So they are essentially, we were all grown up to learn how to multitask.
Yep.
But multitasking isn't actually a thing. We're not trying to do two things or three things at once. We're actually attention switching. So we're flicking backwards and forwards from one thing to another, and we're not actually focusing on any one particular thing at a time.
Yeah.
And my mother will kill me if she watches this later as well. She knits while she's watching TV. And I think, well, how can you focus on what's happening in the storyline on TV if you're knitting? And it's the same thing with kids on their phones or us on their laptops. You can't be focusing on two things at once.
Yeah.
And that's where the neural pathways start to get scrambled as well.
Mm-hmm.
And with mobile phones too, it's not so much that I don't know the science behind the technology,
Sure.
but it's the fact that it's a screen and it's light, so it makes your brain think that it's the sun or it's daylight. So I think that's why it's especially important to get in early when kids are getting things like laptops and mobile phones, is to have that expectation that they're not allowed to have them in their bedrooms. I think is one of the most important things because...
Do you hear that, kids?
Yes.
Okay.
Research shows that nearly half of them are texting after 3 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
So they're not getting enough sleep. And B, it's that looking at your screen switches your brain back on to thinking that it's daytime.
Yep.
Instead of thinking that it's nighttime and going to sleep. And we just know how important sleep is for any age, but particularly teens. And they are night owls. They do stay up later and they do like to sleep in.
Mm.
And that's okay, but if they're going to bed and then staying on their phone for another couple of hours, then they're not switching off. They're not getting that mental downtime.
It's interesting you make that point, because I used to sort of think, well, why they stay up so late? And then I looked into it a bit more, and it is a physiological thing that teenagers in not so much, but they go through that phase where their body just adapts. Well, I don't know. It transitions to staying up late, and then wanting to sleep in. I mean, do you know why that is, or?
I don't know the scientific facts behind it, but yes, they are wired to work better at nighttime. So study and that sort of thing at nighttime, but then obviously they need to sleep in to still get that 10 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Which is why none of us parents may be liking it, but schooling from home might actually be good for them for a little while, because they'll be able to do it to their biological clock.
Yeah.
They'll be able to sleep in, and then as long as they've got a structure and a timetable set for the day, hopefully, we'll start working a little bit later.
Yeah.
And give them a bit more time to sleep.
Yeah, and also you've got here friends, so again, just probably referencing our era. We didn't even have a phone at home. No. So if I wanted to go and contact someone, I had to walk down the street to the public phone box to ring a friend. So I couldn't even phone a friend from home. So whereas, I guess it's just so accessible. I wonder if that's really sort of, have we lost that art of communication as a result of that? Because kids are really sort of, they don't like to ring. I don't know whether they're concerned about the call charges or anything like that, or it's just easier to text, or it's just that's the way that they communicate.
Mm.
What have you found with that?
I think because they've got so many friends contacting them at the same time as
Yeah.
well. So if I look at my son's Instagram messenger feed, or now they're using Snapchat these days, they don't even email. It
Yeah.
takes too long to open up your emails and send an email. And I remember getting excited at receiving an email.
Yeah.
Now they just have so many of their friends contact. Like, they barely have time to respond to one message, and the next one comes, and the next one comes, and the next one comes, and they feel like they have to respond.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, they're leaving the person hanging. They could be hurting that person's feelings.
Yeah.
Or, they could be trying to solve a problem for that friend, especially, girls, if they're having dramas, they'll be trying to sort out problems, or, and this can go on and on for 20, 30 messages.
Yeah.
And it's just the speed. It's just that flicker message back.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely I find, I don't know if it's just teens, because they do struggle a little bit with communication anyway, while their brains are adapting during that adolescent period. But yeah, I find it very difficult to have a conversation with some teens, and they find it difficult to articulate what it is they're saying.
Yeah. And do you think that's more, because I've got a boy and a girl,
Yep.
so it's a little bit tricky for me to say, but I think Georgie is probably finds it easier to communicate than Shelby, and they're only 14 months apart, so I haven't really sort of looked into it, but is that something that you find as well, that girls tend to communicate better than boys? Or?
Yeah, I can tell you that by the age of 2, girls have twice the vocabulary of boys, and teen girls use approximately 2 to 3 times more words a day than boys do.
Yeah.
And that's just biology.
Well, it's the same with adults as well.
Yeah.
Usually by 10 o'clock in the morning I've used my quota, and then it's still going. So not 10 o'clock at night.
And apparently the best time to talk to boys is when they're laying down.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Didn't know that one. All right, so let me just move on to the next one here. Or we'll go back to this one. So overloaded with school, homework, sports and music. Yeah, I think they're very busy lives. They tend to lead very busy lives.
Yep.
So what sort of impact's that having on teenagers?
Well, what it does is it can put them into a state of stress. So a little bit of stress is okay. You'll hear a lot of people say that. A little bit of stress is okay to make us perform at our optimal best, especially when it comes to things like sport.
Yeah.
But the problem is that we're putting ourselves in a state of stress through everyday things. So I love to use the example of Mick Fanning when I'm showing kids. You can see when he's being attacked by that great white shark. He goes through the whole process. So you can see him being attacked. He goes straight into fight or flight mode, which he needs to in that situation. He fights off that shark. He gets onto the back of the boat, and if anyone has seen the footage, you see him and he just goes, when he's on that boat. So he's gone through the stress cycle, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But what's happening is our kids are just getting stress, and then they're staying at that cycle. There's nothing to release it. There is no emergency. There is no, tiger chasing them or anything like that back in caveman days. So there's nothing to release that stress.
Yeah.
So what meditation does is teaches them a way to release that stress, get back into a state of homeostasis in between the stressful events, and then they can carry on with their lives and the things that they need to do, because they can't stop doing them.
Yeah.
They can't stop doing them, but it's just making sure that they're not in that constant state of stress, because if they are, they're just not performing mentally or physically. Same with adults. When we're in that constant state of stress, you can't focus properly, you can't concentrate properly.
Yeah.
You're just not performing at your best.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the other thing, is we've got work as well. Like we've got so many teenagers. I guess we all had, a lot of us had jobs, but I grew up in the country, so there probably wasn't as many opportunities. But but a lot of them are working as well, because they have to pay for their phones.
Yes, and they want to buy shoes, and they want to buy.
That's it.
New phones and new everything. Yes.
Okay, so we're talking about lower dopamine levels. So just explain what dopamine is.
Yeah, so dopamine is that pleasure hit that you get. So for everybody it's different. Athletes might get it when they're playing their sport, and teenagers' dopamine levels just get lower from around age 12 onwards.
Yep.
So it means that they need to do some of these extreme things to get a bigger hit.
Right.
So that's where, and I'll pick on boys again, because you see it. That's when boys start doing stupid shit,
Yeah.
because it gives them that hit of dopamine.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that you just have to
Yeah.
watch out for teens for and kind of understand why they're doing things that they're doing.
So, just on that, I guess that if we look at the girl or the teenage girl equivalent, is it something similar to, like, so many of them are, on the Instagram, and they're trying to sort of get that Insta famous sort of thing. So
Yes.
that's, look at me sort of thing as well.
Yes, yep.
Which I think is a little bit scary,
It is, and it's also part of them trying to find their own identity during that, especially around that 14 to 16-year-old.
Yep.
They're trying to find their identities, where they fit in, the social structures, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
It is.
We were pretty lucky with Georgie. She didn't really go through all of that, which is good. She's got a good group of friends around her, and I think that's a big thing. Is who our children associate with will drive a lot of that behaviour.
Definitely,
Yeah.
and more so as they get older. Unfortunately, we become, and it's a good thing because they need to become independent. But yes, definitely, parents become less and less influential, and their friends become a lot more influential.
All right, so the next one we're looking at is overwhelmed with life, but they don't really know why. So I know I had a few more notes on that one, but maybe just explain that a little bit more.
So that just stems back to that. Okay, so they've gone straight to school. They get up, get ready, they go straight to school. They might. I know my son, he has soccer training 3-4 days a week because he plays rep soccer.
Yep.
Comes home, has afternoon tea, goes straight to soccer. Comes home, might have assignment work to do, and the end of the night he's just sitting and he's like, I don't know how I feel and I don't know why I feel like this. And he put it into words the other day. He's like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I'm like, yep, that's that's unfortunately part of life, is that we do start to feel overwhelmed sometimes.
Yep.
And I think it's them being able to voice what that feeling is. So they just might feel uncomfortable or anxious about something and they don't understand why. And because they're connected all the time too, sometimes if they're sitting doing nothing, they might feel bored or anxious because they don't understand what this feeling is.
Yeah.
Whereas I think teaching them that it's okay to actually sit in stillness and do nothing, and not only that, it's extremely good for you mentally.
Yeah.
Sitting in stillness for long periods can actually increase your grey brain matter, which is responsible for memory and learning. And I mean, they've shown that in monks who are obviously sitting in stillness for long periods of time, but it doesn't hurt to tell you that to your kids. Anyway, so yeah, I guess just trying to teach them that overwhelm is a natural thing.
Yep.
And the reasons why and the things that they can do, perhaps in my son's case, be a little bit more organised so he's not putting himself in overwhelm, having that structure, having that timetable, those sorts of things.
Sure.
But then also making sure they're having time out for themselves. So no physical activity, no mental activity, just sitting and doing nothing.
Yep.
And that's not reading, that's not looking at your phone, that's not looking at TV. It's just sitting in a little bit of self-contemplation, maybe going, why am I feeling like this?
Yeah.
And
So
just sitting with it.
Listening to themselves rather than the outside world.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And finding out what it is that their body needs.
Yeah. So I guess let's have a quick look. I've got something. Have a quick look what else we've got there. Okay, why don't we jump into some statistics about teenagers. Let me just go back to that screen. Talk to me a little bit about mental health. Is probably a big one.
Yeah, it's a massive thing. For me, the scariest thing and the reason why I wanted to get into teaching this to teenagers is that the number one killer of adolescents is suicide. And that has increased, I believe it's 30% over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And there's also a huge increase in diagnosis of kids from young ages up to 17 being diagnosed with a mental illness.
Yeah.
And I think those statistics are just really sad. To me, teenagers, I understand school is a lot more pressure than what it was when we were there, but I also remember having fun.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's only 5 years of that, 6 years now. It's only 6 years of their lives, and trying to get them to understand that, it's only 6 years. It's, it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah, and I guess we have the benefit of hindsight.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's something that kids don't have. So as much as we try to explain it, and we've had these conversations, but but Dad, you wouldn't know what it's like.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, okay, it was 35 years ago, but I still do have recollections of the pressures. I mean, we were still under pressure to perform and get good grades and things like that, you know, depending on what our parents' expectations were. And perhaps that's part of it. On the whole, are parents today, you know, do you think that their expectations of their children are healthy?
I think it really depends on the family. Like you said, it depends on what kind of family you came from. Although I came from a fairly academic family, but it's not something I've ever put pressure on my kids.
Yeah.
My son's number one passion is soccer.
Yeah.
My daughter hasn't found her passion yet. And again, I just sort of say to my kids, as long as you're doing the best that you can do, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
You know, I guess it really depends on the individual child. Some children may have a passion to go to university and study and be doctors and lawyers and vets and all that sort of thing. Some may have a more humanitarian nature to them. It really depends on the child and the family. I think that parents are probably so busy these days that it's more that they're not interested, but it's more that we kind of, things just go by the wayside.
Yeah, I think,
more so than pressure.
Yeah, it's, and I think that comes down to the value system as well. You know, in that, not saying it's a bad thing, but we're all just different. But just I guess taking that interest, you know, when life is so busy, that, you know, we made the decision, all of us with kids, we made the decision to have children. Yeah. You know, it didn't stop at 10 or 11 or 12. I mean, it's a lifelong commitment.
It is, yeah.
And I guess I've sort of lost sight over that a little bit over the years as well, and that I've got very engaged with work and business and that sort of stuff. And it's so hard, and I guess we've got to work out some way of reminding ourselves that, you know, that they should form part of our daily life.
Yeah, I find meal times. So I'm very strict about meal times in my house. We all eat together. Obviously not lunch because the kids are at school. But and in the car, I like to practice what I call sifting, which is from Daniel Siegel's book, and it's just SIFT. So it's, what is your child sensing? What are they, so image picturing, what are they picturing, what are they feeling, and what are they thinking? Yeah. It takes like a minute to do on the way to school in the car, and it's just become automatic for us. Yeah. And, you know, I might get a one-word answer out of my son, I might get, you know, a biography from my daughter, but at least I will have some idea, whatever his responses are, I'll go, okay, so that's what he's thinking about at the moment, or that's what he's feeling at the moment, and it's a really good indication of what because it may surprise you what your child is thinking about or what they're feeling. And it's a really good indication, just very quickly, for you to get an idea and check in with your kid. Yeah. And the answers to those 4 things can really be quite an eye-opener. Okay. And then at the dinner table, we do a gratitude game. And I admit this has gone a little bit by the wayside at the moment too. But, you know, it'll be, what was your favourite thing about today? What are you grateful for today? But we also do, what was your least favourite thing about today? Because life isn't perfect, and it's not meant, you know, you're not meant to be in this positive, happy, la 24/7. So we also do, you know, what was your least favourite thing? You know, did anybody or anything inspire you? And we change the questions up, and someone can ask a different question if they want to. But so it's just 2 good ways to check in the morning, check in at night. Yeah. At least, you know, if you don't have that time, especially now my kids get the bus home, I don't have that school drop off and pick up to have that forced 20-minute discussion on the way home where they've got no choice because they're in the car with you. Yeah, exactly. So, it's just finding those moments that work for you and your family.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about mobile phone usage with teenagers. Yes. It's some pretty serious stats that I was just looking at there. So.
Yep. So, look, I love Apple screen time. Absolutely love Apple screen time, and I recommend it for anybody giving their child a phone for the first time. You can restrict your child how long they can spend on each app. You can also, so my daughter's phone, it goes off at 7 o'clock at night, comes back on at 7 o'clock in the morning. So she can only use it to make calls, texts, that sort of stuff after that time. Yep. My son's is a bit later. He's just like 9 o'clock, and he wants a bit more responsibility at the moment and accountability. So I've relaxed some of the features on his, but then I can go and check and see, you know, if it's increased and go, hey mate, you know, you've doubled your screen time in the last week, which is probably going to be pretty predictable for most people at the moment if they haven't been to school for a couple of days. So I think it's just trying to set those boundaries from day one. Trying to do it later on when your kids are turning 13, 14, you're going to have a battle on your hands.
Yeah, definitely. I can, I have to say ours are pretty good. So, you know, they're pretty thoughtful around that sort of thing. But they do spend a lot of time on their phones. But anyway, that's one of those things.
And they just don't have the, they're addicted. They're addicted to it, and they don't have the self-control. They really don't have the self-control
to
certainly be able to monitor themselves.
Yeah, I guess that's part, I don't think I've ever heard of them talking about that. You know, they learn about that at school.
No.
You know, how to manage, you know, screen time and things like that. Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
Yeah.
But,
and I think it's also trying to relate to them that it's not a punishment. It's you're trying to look out for their mental well-being.
Yeah.
It's not a punishment.
Yeah.
But also that having a phone is a privilege. It's not a right. It's not an automatic thing that every kid should just have one.
Yeah.
It's a privilege that needs to be respected and earned, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So let's look at what we can do around the meditation. Talk to me a bit about more about, you know, what you offer from a meditation point of view and the tools and tips that we can sort of talk about there. Wherever you want to start with that one.
Okay, so the biggest thing about so the type of meditation that I teach is mindfulness meditation. So it's all about teaching them to be present, and the big thing about teaching them to be present is if they're not thinking about the future and they're not thinking about a past, it can reduce anxiety, because thinking about the past can cause depression, thinking about the future can cause anxiety.
Right.
So it just makes sense if you try and teach them to stay in the present, pay attention to what is going on around them, inside them. It prevents their brain from then going off into the future or telling stories about the past.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing about teaching mindfulness. Meditation is just one way to practice mindfulness. So with teens, I just keep it very simple with some breathing techniques, that sort of thing. Even if they start at 10 minutes and then sort of getting them up to about a 20-minute, and a lot of that is just pure relaxation.
Sure.
So guiding them into a state of relaxation, relaxing their minds, relaxing their bodies, just letting them switch off for 10 to 15 minutes. A lot of them will go to sleep because they're just so tired. That's fine. It's, you know, at least it's 15 minutes where they've just not been thinking about anything or anyone and just relaxing. I guess relaxing and taking that time for themselves and realising the importance of mental well-being and how important it is to start taking care of that at an early age.
So is there generally, you know, with how teenagers are, you know, we know that they sort of tend to sort of stay up late and sleep in, that sort of stuff. Is there a better time for them to be actually practicing that mindfulness?
Yeah, probably when they are going to bed at night.
Yep.
So especially if they have just been playing computer games, they've just been on their phone. Like you know, ideally you shouldn't be doing any of that for half an hour before you go to bed. But reality is, it's you know, I watch TV with my kids and then we go straight to bed.
Yeah.
You know, I might read a book for half an hour to get myself to sort of switch off. But, or do meditation. But yeah, I think nighttime is good for kids. Again, it depends on the kids. You know, I've got one that's a morning person and one that isn't.
Yeah.
So my son, I would ideally get him to do a meditation, you know, just on an app or something like that, or once I've taught him to do it before he goes to sleep, to help him have a really good night's sleep, feel refreshed in the morning. My daughter, on the other hand, she's a bit of an overthinker. She falls asleep easily though. She gets up earlier. For her, you know, sitting on her floor for 5 or 10 minutes before she goes about her day can just set her day and just kind of quiet her mind first thing in the morning.
I think that's what surprised me when I first started sort of looking into meditation a lot more and doing it myself, was that it doesn't have to be a long process. You know, my vision of meditation was you're in this almost like this holy place where you'd be sitting there for hours, you know, that sort of thing. It's a bit crazy, I know.
Only monks have the time for that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But it doesn't really, it's a practice that doesn't have to take long.
No, look, Doing 10 minutes a day is better than doing nothing at all. And doing 10 minutes every day is actually better than going to a 1 hour class.
Yep.
Because it's that build up. It's that build up, and the more often you're doing it, the quicker your body gets into that state.
Yep.
So ideally 20 to 30 minutes is a really good benchmark, because your body, you just notice it compared to doing 10 minutes, compared to doing 20 or 30 minutes. You will notice you go deeper. You definitely go deeper, especially if it's a long guided mindfulness style meditation. So you definitely do go deeper, but it's the same as exercise. You know, if you do, you go for a 20-minute run, it's not going to be good for you as an hour run. But it's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it probably is for me, because an hour run would probably kill me.
I can't run at all. So.
Okay, so that's good. So that's what next can we do then? How do we get them into that space?
Yep.
I guess, you know, we can say, okay, well, this is what we need to do. I guess is the how is probably what most parents would like to know.
Yeah. Okay. So there's lots of apps out there. There is Smiling Mind, which is a really good one. It's got some tailored meditations for teens. There's also loads on YouTube, and Insight Timer is one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, I use that one.
So starting them, if you go on Insight Timer, you can get free programs for teens, that sort of thing. I haven't tried a lot of them out. I can't recommend one over the other. But even just starting them with a basic breathing exercise. So one of my favorites, and you can do it lying in bed, sitting. I mean, it probably look funny if you're doing this in the classroom, but lying in bed at night, it's just placing one hand on their chest and one hand on their stomach, and then just breathing in and out through your nostrils. That's one big thing, is actually teaching them to breathe in and out through their nostrils and not their mouth, because A, it filters the air, and B, it lowers your heart rate. So it's a very quick and easy way to lower your heart rate if they are feeling anxious or overwhelmed, just all of a sudden are having a panic attack. So one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, and just breathing in and out through their nostrils. Just paying attention to the rise and fall of their chest, and the rise and fall of their belly. So it's lowering the heart rate. It's also giving them something else to pay attention to other than their thoughts. So just focusing on that movement of the chest and the belly.
And so that can be sort of something they can do at home. If they're out and about, how can we, if our kids are feeling anxiety or something like that, they might be feel a bit funny doing something like that in amongst their friends or whatever. So what's something else that they might be able to do?
So again, they could do it just with one hand on the belly or two hands on the belly.
Sure.
It doesn't look so conspicuous.
Yep.
And again, just focusing their attention on the rise and fall of their bellies. Or for some of them too, they may notice the air flowing in and out of their nostrils. It just depends. Everybody's different. For me, it's the belly. Some people notice the air flowing in and out through the nostrils more. Some people notice the chest more. So it's just switching into paying attention to their breathing is probably the easiest and quickest, because you're always breathing and you've got it with you everywhere you go.
Well, it's an unconscious or a non-conscious process.
It's something we don't normally pay attention to, and until you do, it's like, okay, right, that's the way I'm supposed to be breathing.
Okay, yeah, it's been with some of the meditations I do, they sort of focus on the coolness of the breathing in, and then the temperature difference of it, the warm coming out. So whatever works, I guess, is all those little tips and tricks.
It's whatever you notice, whatever you notice the most, and that's what I call your anchor point. So whether it's your belly, whether it's your chest, or whether it's the air flowing in and out of your nostrils, it's to choose which one of those is your anchor point, and that's the one that you focus on when you're doing a basic mindful meditation. Okay.
And it's not only for teens.
No. It's for everyone.
Yes. Yeah, so that's there's certainly some great information there. How do you feel about the current climate?
Okay, so with everything that's happening, every parent's worst nightmare, homeschooling. Well, not every parent's worst nightmare. There's some people out there that's really good at that sort of thing, and you can actually go to quite a few websites and that too. Homeschoolers Association Australia, I think, is one, to get some good tips and ideas. But
we might actually put together a bit of an information pack to that you can get access to. That'll be good.
I think the number one thing for parents at the moment is going to be get organised. So get organised, make sure your child has all the passwords and links and everything they need to start learning online. get a copy of their timetable, try and structure a day that's a little bit similar.
Mm-hmm.
So again, letting them sleep, and if they need to, start the day a little bit later if you want to, but try and get into some kind of structure and boundary setting nice and early. And no kid will tell you that they like having structure and boundaries, but every psychologist and professional will tell you that they do.
Mm.
So I think, setting up boundaries around technology. I know it's going to be hard at the moment because the only way they can talk to their friends is via their phones.
Mm.
So maybe, I don't know, things like maybe having an hour off for every hour that they have on, maybe limiting it to, lunchtime, the times they would normally be able to do it at school. Limit it to those meal breaks. Again, checking in with each other on the meal breaks, having family meals together at this time, breakfast, lunch and dinner, all sitting down together, checking in together.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing, is that, there's so much limited communication previously, to now then take out that 6 to 7 hours that they're spending with their friends, 5 days a week.
Yep.
I think that could certainly be, have a massive impact.
Yeah, definitely.
So would you encourage your kids to, rather than just texting, maybe having more visual conversations?
Absolutely. So getting them on group chats. I know there's a lot of people that are starting up groups for the whole class. Maybe not the whole grade. I mean, I know my daughter's school has 15 grade 7 classes.
Sure.
So, they're breaking up into maybe their friendship groups or the class, and having group chats, where they can all go on together. I don't think it costs anything for them to do group chats through apps. But maybe scheduling them, trying to work out a time that they have these group chats. So it's not just all day, every day. It's like, okay, get on to your friends at, 1 o'clock. Why don't you all get together at 1 o'clock and have a group chat?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'll be so important.
Yeah.
And physical activity, because
Yes.
I know that when I'm exercising, that's when my mind's at its best.
Yep.
So again, there's going to be a lot of instances where kids aren't going to be able to play sport.
Yep.
So how do you think we might be able to counter that? I mean, there's only so much you can do at home.
Yeah, there is. Discipline's going to be a really big thing, because I know a lot of, like Football Queensland, they're putting out exercises that the kids can do.
Sure.
I know that my son's team are putting out exercises that the kids can do via Zoom, which is good, because then it'll be scheduled at a certain time.
Yeah.
I think just leaving it up to them to do it anytime during the day is not going to work.
Mm.
They're used to being at training at a certain time. So try and keep to that structure. Okay, 4:30 this afternoon, go out and kick the ball, or whatever sport your kid likes to play. They can still go for a walk around the block. They can still take the dog for a walk. Those sorts of things. Obviously, keeping in line with social distancing rules. But yeah, I think it's important to try and get some kind of structure, especially if your child does play sport.
Yeah.
Obviously they play a musical instrument. Get them to practice the same time every day they would normally practice. When they would normally have a lesson, a lot of teachers are going online now. See if their music teacher can do online classes, all that sort of thing.
Yep.
Just try and maintain as much stability and structure and scheduling as you can.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's I've actually got a basketball coach that we're going to start with this coming week, where we're going to be running live sessions, twice a week. And we've got a structured program so they can still have that interaction, with their coach.
Yep.
And maybe learn some fun new skills as well. Yep. So we would definitely encourage any coaches out there that, to engage in that sort of behaviour. I mean, I'd be looking at something like Zoom. I think Zoom have opened it up for educational people. So whether that extends to sporting, but it's definitely something worth looking into, because that Zoom, if people don't know, is like a webinar-based sort of virtual meeting software, where you can join a whole bunch of people together at once. So and you can incorporate video and all that sort of stuff. So
and I think the free version gives you 40 minutes, or the paid
40
version
minutes.
at $20 a month, you can have much longer.
Yeah. So 40 minutes is certainly a long enough time, I think, to keep the kids going. Anything else you want to add at this stage? Did we?
I think.
Oh, books. Let's talk about some books.
Some great books for teens.
So we'll just pop this first one up there.
Great books for parents to read about teens. So Being 14 by Madonna King, this is a really great book if you have a teenage daughter, but it also gives you some insight if you have a teenage son as well.
Sure.
It's predominantly girls around that grade 9 period, which is the hardest year apparently for most teenagers, is that sort of 14 to 15 age. It's where they're really kind of sort of trying to work out their own identities, fit in, all those sorts of
Lots
things.
of clashing at that age between groups.
And lots of, risk-taking, starting smoking, drinking, all those sorts of things as well. And it really goes into the reasons why, but also from the teenager's perspective. So she's interviewed lots of kids over, and it's Australian as well, so she's interviewed lots of girls all over Australia, as well as professionals.
Just pop that one up again.
Yeah, so she's interviewed a lot of girls over Australia as well as a lot of professionals, and just got opinions from everybody.
Excellent. Next book we're looking at there?
Yeah, Tricky Teens. So this one's from Andrew Fuller. And it's not necessarily, you don't have to have a tricky teen to read the book. I think having any relationship with a teen can be a bit tricky. So it's just a really good one, and just covers off boys, girls, everything from social media, communication, technology, how to communicate with them, all those sorts of things.
Terrific. And we mentioned this one earlier.
Yes.
Daniel Siegel.
Yeah, so Brainstorm, this actually tells you the biological and scientific reasons why your teens are doing what they do. And it's really good to sort of go back all the time and go, okay, I know that this isn't my son's fault. He's doing this because his brain is physically changing.
Yep.
And, they can't help a lot of their behaviour. Not making excuses for poor behaviour, but, it's that, when, I don't know if this was the same for you, but when all of a sudden your teen is just not doing the things that they used to do, they don't think it's important to make their beds anymore. They don't, and it literally is because they are starting to just lose neural connections, and all the stuff that they don't find necessary or they don't find really important just goes. And they only keep the stuff that's important.
And it's constantly, the brain is constantly evolving and forming those new neural pathways that to new experiences and things that I guess maybe they are drawn to things that give them more of a pleasurable outcome than not. But okay, so there's 3 great books there. We'll put the details in the comments as well, and I'd like to thank you for coming into the studio for your first live stream.
Yes, my very first live stream.
Excellent.
Yes.
That's my second, so I think we did pretty
I
well.
practice meditation.
And if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yes, so Meditation Sunshine Coast, Facebook page, Instagram and website. At the moment, obviously, I'm not teaching any face-to-face classes. I am mainly focusing, this year my focus was I don't have a studio anymore where I teach regular classes. So this year my focus was going to be on workshops in the workplace for adults and teaching a program in high school for teens. Obviously that's all on hold at the moment, so I'm looking at getting a program online as fast as I can for adults, and then I'll be placing one online for teens as well.
Excellent. So it's something to look out for, and if you've got any questions, by all means, I didn't even check. There could have been some questions going over here. We'll just have a quick look. Someone's saying hello there, so that's good. If you've got any questions, shoot them through. I know we probably didn't give you enough time to sort of plan this one in there, but I do thank you, Michelle, and I hopefully at some stage we can get you back when you've got a few of those programs up and running. We can have a talk about those and how people might be able to get involved.
Yep, and feel free to email me or message me with any questions anybody has.
Excellent. And so that was Meditation Sunshine Coast?
Yes.
That's all you need to search for in Facebook?
Yep.
Excellent. And all your website details and whatnot are on there as well.
Yes.
Terrific. Okay, so let's get my mouse back. We'll say goodbye for now, and we'll see you in a week or so. And for those of you watching on Meditation Sunshine Coast, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. Have a great week.